Jana Horáková is from Czech Republic. She is from Brno, from Masaryk University. And maybe it's good to show her, if I can, I will show her CV on internet, because it's very long and we don't have time to say everything. So I would like to highlight just a few important points. So she's the associate professor in aesthetics at Masaryk University. A few years ago, she wrote the book, which is in Czech, but it's titled Robot jako robot, which means robot as a robot, and it is about play R.U.R. Čapek's Rozum's Universal Robots. So in my view, and I think that everyone agrees with me here in Czech Republic, she's the expert on R.U.R. and if we have the theme of the conference 100th anniversary of robots, then she's the best speaker for the opening talk, because she can introduce Čapek, the play R.U.R. and to summarize what happened with the word robot in past century. And the whole conference also opens the question, what is the future of robots? So you can think what is the century of robotics ahead. So she will speak about R.U.R. in her talk. I would like to also mention, which is interesting for me, that she studied the dance conservatory in Brno. So she's a ballerina. And we have also in organization team Sylvia Höller, and she also is dancer. So it's nice connection between Sylvia and Jana today morning. And she obtained a lot of awards, and she doesn't have it in CV on this page. You can see plenty of publications. So I am really looking forward to her talk. And maybe because at our A-Life conference, we have a lot of artists, and she is from the faculty, and she teaches a lot of art-related subjects, and also at the university they welcome international students. So if someone is, I hope that Jana agrees, if someone is interested in collaboration with Masaryk University and Jana, don't be shy and contact her, and you can do some artworks for next A-Life conference together. So I hope I said all the most important things, and now I can ask Jana to start her keynote. So welcome at A-Life 2021.
Yeah, thank you, Jitka, very much. I will start with sharing my screen.
Yeah, I stopped the sharing, so now I hope it's okay.
Okay, so hello everyone. First, let me thank the organizers of the conference A-Life 2021, and particularly to Jitka Čejková for having me at this special scientific event. It's a great honor for me to have a keynote speech for this international audience full of outstanding and prominent experts in the field of artificial life. I hope you will enjoy my presentation. It's conceived as a tribute to Karl Čapek and robots. It consists of an illustrated survey of historical facts about the play R.U.R. and overview of the metamorphosis that robot has undergone over the past 100 years. I will focus mainly on areas close to my professional interests, which is theater and new media art. In the years 2020 and 2021, the whole world celebrates the 100th anniversary of robot, a neologism coined by Joseph Čapek and a drama character invented by Karl Čapek, an author of the theater play R.U.R. Rozum's Universal Robots. The play R.U.R. was published by publishing house Aventinum at the end of the year 1920. and it had an official world premiere at the National Theatre in Prague at the beginning of 1921. So we can say that the robots have two birthdays. In 1920, the word robot appeared to the world as a text and a concept. In 1921, the robot was introduced to the world on the theater stage as a drama character for the first time. On the slide, you can see the first issue of the drama. The graphic designer of the book was Joseph Čapek, actually. The play R.U.R. gained an instant success, and it brought to its author, Karl Čapek, immediate fame on an international scale. The play was translated and played on the theater stages of the world capitals worldwide since 1921. And the word robot was quickly appropriated by dozens, like 30 of foreign languages. The success of the play about robots was not a short-term fashion affair, as some Čapek's contemporaries predicted. From a perspective of 100 years later, we can say that the robot is a highly valuable symbol of a human of the modern society, which in the peak of modernity replaced homunculus, golem, mechanical androids, living tools and marionettes of previous periods. On this slide, you can see two caricatures of Karl Čapek by his brother Joseph Čapek. On the first one, Karl Čapek appears as a robot with a number on his chest, which is the date of the R.U.R.'s premiere on the National Theatre in Prague. And it's a comment on the reduction of general knowledge of Karl Čapek's literary work almost exclusively to his authorship of the R.U.R. and particularly of the robot. On the second one, there is a robot on the theater stage with an inscription "Export" on his chest. It refers both to the worldwide fame of robots and to a critique of Karl Čapek that he intentionally wrote a play which could gain international audience attention. So it means that it was somehow calcul in it and not artistic need to express some deep ideas. Who were brothers Čapek? The older brother, Joseph Čapek, was a painter influenced by Cubism and Cubofuturism, who lately developed his own playful, primitive painting style. He was not only an acclaimed painter and graphic artist, but also a writer and poet too. His younger brother, Karl Čapek, was a writer, journalist, playwright, translator, and stage manager. He was a leading intellectual figure of young Czechoslovakia and a close friend of the first president, Tomáš Masaryk. Karl Čapek became internationally known for his science fiction and allegorical novels and plays. The insect play, R.U.R., The Macropolis Affair, transformed to opera by Leoš Janáček, The War with the Newts. He was an intellectual who had the need and the gift to express his ideas comprehensively to the broad public. Paradoxically enough, despite of his extensive and diverse work outside the literary world and in the international context, he is probably best known for the authorship of the word robot, coined by his brother Joseph. Let me quickly summarize the plot of the play R.U.R. The R.U.R. Rossum's Universal Robots is a factory on an isolated island in which artificial workers called robots are produced on assembly lines from synthetic organic matter. The robots are distributed worldwide to serve in different professions like cleaners, factory workers, and secretaries. The factory is prospering very well and it's producing and selling more and more robots worldwide. As robots are made of artificial flesh, they might be mistaken for humans easily, and the other way around. That's what we learn from a series of comic situations which happen in the prologue of the play when Helena Glory, the daughter of the factory owner, visits the island for the first time. She is not able to differentiate humans from robots and robots from humans. In the next act of the play, 10 years later, the audience is told that the worldwide robot-based economy has been established and that the dramatic decline in human birth is recorded. Helena, who can't have children, is convinced that it's a punishment for replacing humans with robots and decides to burn the receipt for their production. We learn that Dr. Gall, meanwhile, changed the recipe for robots at the request of Helena, who feared their emotional coldness. The new generation of robots is given higher irritability, kind of emotions, which has a side effect in the form of episodic outburst of rage. At the same time, there comes first news about robots' rebellions in the world. The global revolt of the robots leads to the extinction of the humans, and it reaches the Rosum's Island too as the act ends. In the last act, we are told that robots killed all humans except Alquist, the old man who is commissioned to invent the recipe for making robots again. He is still working on it, but he is not able to find the formula. The leaders of the robots ask him to do autopsies on robots to discover the recipe for their production. When the robots Primus and Helena are chosen to be used for this purpose, they show love to each other when they express their readiness to sacrifice themselves for each other. And it seems that humans are gone, but the essence of humanity, the love, emerged in robots. In the idyllic last act of the play, Alquist, the last human, is sending robots, Primus and Helena, the new Adam and Eve, to the world to start new civilization, the civilization of robots. On the slide, you can see the handwriting of the play R.U.R. On the right side. On the left side, there is just illustration. Karl Čapek is writing something. The drama as a text is a score or a script to be performed on theater stage. Each stage production of the drama is at the same time its interpretation and original work of the director and their team, like set designer, costume designer, actors. By studying different theatrical productions of R.U.R, we can learn how the meaning of Čapek's drama changed within different cultural contexts. So now, let me introduce you to the first stagings of the play R.U.R. The play was almost immediately performed on the stages in New York, London, Berlin, Paris, Tokyo, and many more. The very first stage performance of R.U.R. took place despite protest of the author Karl Čapek and representatives of the National Theatre in Prague on January 2nd, 1921 at the Municipal Klitspera Theatre in Hradec Králové. It was staged by Association of Theatre Amateurs called Klitspera under direction of Bedřich Stein, by profession and inspector of state railways. On the left, there is a poster inviting to the world premiere of R.U.R. in Hradec Králové, and the photograph is just illustrational. It's a photo of some members of the amateur theatre group in Hradec Králové. The official world premiere of Čapek's play took place on January 25th, 1921 at the National Theatre in Prague. The director was Vojta Novák, the author of the stage design was Bedřich Stein, and Joseph Čapek designed costumes. The production has been performed a total of 63 until 1927. On the left, we can see a poster from the Prague premiere, and on the right is a photograph of the National Theatre in the beginning of the 20th century. On this slide, there are actors in costumes of characters from Prague production of R.U.R. From left to right, there is Dr. Gall, Consul Busman, Engineer Fabry, Harry Domin, the Principal Executive Director of the factory. Next to Domin, there is Helena Glory, and below is Nana, Helena's servant maid. On the right side, there are representatives of robots, the artificial workers. There is second robot and robotess Sula. The robot characters wore gray-blue or blue overalls pulled down at the waist with a white label with a serial number attached to the chest. The roboticity of robots was expressed by mechanical movements and monotonous and jerky pronunciation complemented by stiff looks in expressionless faces. During the play, robots' behavior becomes more and more human-like. The civilian costumes of robots designed by Joseph Čapek are in line with requirements of Karl Čapek, The similarities of humans and robots corresponds with the play's R.U.R. meaning as a modern dystopia about humans turned into machines. Bedřich Feuerstein designed the stage in a moderate expressionist style with symbolic colors. Instead of traditional painted scenery, he chose a modern architectural approach. From left to right, there is a setting for a prologue of the play, the first act, Helena's Glory Room, below, and on the right side, there is a staging for the last act, the Alquist Laboratory. R.U.R. was introduced to the American audience just 1 year later, on October 9, 1922, by the Theatre Guild on the stage of Garrick Theatre in Broadway in New York. Director was Philip Moeller, assistant director was Agnes Morgan, and stage and costume designer was Lee Simonson. The R.U.R. entered a different cultural context in the US. The play's philosophical features, its dystopian satiric aspects were suppressed in favor of a melodramatic spectacle of the conflict of a group of heroes, representatives of humankind, the directors of the R.U.R. factory, with inhuman machinic monsters, robots that got out of control of its creators and annihilated them. On the left, there is a review of the R.U.R. production in New York. The drawing expresses very well the understanding of the robots' characters in US. They are monsters, much bigger and stronger than men, which must be treated in chains to protect humans against them. On the right, the photograph of the New York production shows a group of robots with the same haircut as a sign of their serial production and the lack of individuality. The play was presented in London a year later. It was performed for the first time on April 24, 1923 by the Rain Company in St. Martin's Theatre. Director was Basil Dean and the stage designer was George W. Harris. The adventurous aspects of the plot, stressing the epic story of the conflict between humans and robots of superhuman physical strength, prevailed in London's production of the R.U.R. too. On the left, there is a drawing that depicts the R.U.R. theater performance. The army of robots is approaching frightened audience that is watching, as it's written there, the fall of mankind and robots taking possessions. On the right side, there is a photograph from the London production. In Germany, the title of the play was translated into German to W.U.R., Verstands Universal Robots. It means that they were aware of an importance of speaking name of the robots' inventors, the old Rosen, the representative of the reason in service of science, and the young Rosen, the representative of utilitarian, pragmatic mind of engineer and businessman. The first premiere of the play R.U.R. in Germany took place on October 6, 1921 already in Aachen, but more significant for us is the premiere in Berlin, which took place in 1923 at the Theater am Kurfürstendamm. Director was John Gotthoft, and this production is notable for its unique stage design by famous architect Frederick Kiesler. The stage was transformed into a monumental mechanism made of rhythmically moving components and different optical devices. There was a film projection in the center part of the stage, and it's probably the first usage of film projection on theater stage at all. The combination of projection of robots and the physical presence of human characters provided a new interpretative key to the play. Robots, the humans, machines, appeared on a screen as virtualities or as potentialities of a modern human longing to become a machine. On the left, we can see the expressionistic staging of R.U.R. in Berlin, and on the right, there is the electromechanic stage seen by Frederick Kiesler. In France, the reception of R.U.R. was ambivalent or even confrontational. The reviewers repeatedly emphasized a lack of originality of the plot, and they criticized the staging of the theater performance in a style of bourgeois tragedy. Miroslav Rutte wrote a long and critical review of the R.U.R.'s production in Paris. he described the robots as a group of firefighters lacking the effect of horror. He was sorry that only 7 actors represented a crowd of robots and the director put the main emphasis on love stories of Helena and Domin and robot Primus and Robotess Helena. On the left, the drawing from the newspaper shows that in the center of attention of the director of the play were not robots, but a love story of Helena Glory and the director of the factory, Harry Domin. On the right, there is a photograph from the Paris stage production. The play R.U.R. gained enormous popularity not only in the Czech Republic, but especially in the Anglo-Saxon cultural context. R.U.R. stage productions in New York and London influenced the transformation of the R.U.R. from dystopian drama to Frankensteinian melodrama on made monsters that got out of control of their creators. The first quote here refers to a public debate on the significance of R.U.R. held in London with the participation of G.B. Shaw. He warned the audience that robots do not represent an oppressed, enslaved proletariat, but robots are potentially all members of modern societies, everyone whose thoughts are, for example, manipulated by reading of newspapers. The second quote is from a review by a Czech visitor to London performance of R.U.R. We can read his critique of how the play is staged and how the audience react to it. It illustrates well what was said about the play's adventurous and sci-fi interpretation that prevailed in the general consciousness and in popular culture. The robot has a number of relatives in the work of the Čapek brothers, especially in the short stories belonging to their early work. Anthropomorphic mechanical double can be found in the short story Opilec, Drunkard, written by Joseph Čapek exclusively. In the story, the young engineer constructed his alter ego, which had to go dating instead of him because he was too busy with his work. In the short story Levantine, written by both brothers, there is a mechanical marionette, the android, in a form of lady with a pan, which is flirting with a prince. In the short story, literally the instructive story, written by both brothers, one of the characters is a historical person, Jacques Droz, the clockworker and maker of the clockwork-based humanoids, the automatons of the 18th century, the famous writer, musician, Drossman. The short story Excentro deals with an ambivalence between human acrobat and puppet, between living body and the dead corpus. But the closest to R.U.R. plot is a short story system in which human beings are specially trained to become perfect workers called operarius utilis repratoni. This short story in many layers and aspects resemble the plot of R.U.R. and robots. Čapek mentioned the Prague legend about the golem made of clay by Rabbi Lev ben Bezalel from the 16th century as a source of inspiration for the robots. He wrote that he realized the similarities after the play was done. And the robot is golem of modern times produced in series on factory assembly line. However, there can be found much more relatives of robots. We can find them in all stories and legends about artificial humanoid made by human to serve them as a perfect servants, slaves, or living instruments, which were written from ancient legends to this time. The reviewers of the play R.U.R. repeatedly refer to many other similar stories about artificial servants from cultural history of humankind. However, the unique feature of robots is their serial production. The usually intimate drama of an artificial creature rebelled against its creator and master is in R.U.R. transformed into social global conflict. The R.U.R's central message is the Čapek's humanistic warning from the threat of a robotization of humans of modern societies. But it was replaced with emphasis given on adventurous story and especially on the robot as a symbol of beliefs for and fears of scientific and technological progress of industrial societies. In the 1920s and 1930s, the so-called machine age, there were several mechanical robots built that served as a curiosities or for an advertisement of technological progress and automatization of work. In the year 1928, 3 of them were built. Mr. Telebox by Roy James Wensley, Gaku Tensoku by Makoto Nishimura, and the Robot Eric by William Richards. The Robot Eric is the most explicit example of mechanical robot inspired by Čapek's robots. He has a R.U.R. written on his chest, and the metal body reminds the costumes of robots from the London premiere of the play. Authors are Captain William H. Richards and Ellen H. Raphael. These 2 war veterans assembled this first British robot to make him a highlight of the opening of the exhibition of the Society of Model Engineers at London's Royal Horticultural Hall. The robot Eric was manipulated by remote control, and he was able to stand up, wave his hand, and even answer several questions. We can say that robots get out of control of their authors, brothers Čapek, and they became popular means of articulation of modern myths of technological progress. They have colonized pages of science fiction magazines and novels, particularly in the Anglo-Saxon cultural context. It was in the 20s of the 20th century when the sci-fi genre was born on pages of so-called pulp magazines, published by Hugo Gernsback, with titles like Wonder Stories, Science Wonder Stories, Astounding Stories of Super Science. In many of these short stories, robots or androids played a significant role. Here you can read a comment by Asimov. Isaac Asimov wrote that during the 20s and 30s, R.U.R. helped straightening Frankensteinian complex. Hordes of noisy and murdering robots appeared in one story after another. Roland Barthes described the process of mythologization as a process when some concept, like robot in our case, is taken and many neologisms are derived from it. And the original concept as robot in our case is taken as a material used in the second order science system for another purposes, in other contexts, in other stories. In this process of mythization, the meaning of the source materials is inevitably deformed as it's on one side reduced and on the other side replaced with or integrated into new narrative of the myth. Applying this theory to robots, we can say that it fits very well. Concerning the robot and neologism, word robot gained significant popularity and spread mainly over English language countries very soon. The play R.U.R. was translated into English by Paul Selver in 1923, and as soon as in 1933, we can find many variations of word robot listed in Oxford English Dictionary supplements. It was robotize, robotizing, robotization, robotry, robotism, robotian, robotesque, and so on. However, the most influential neologism derived from the word robot is definitely robotics. It was coined by Russian-born American writer Isaac Asimov. He invented the word robotics and 3 laws of robotics and used them for the first time in his short story Runaround, published in pulp magazine Astounding Science Fiction in 1942. Asimov's robot stories are a good example of the change of meaning of the robot character when replaced into the new context, the mythization of the robot. According to Asimov, the robot is not a symbol of endangered humanity, but a mere machine. Robot is a machine plus computer or positron brain. Asimov dismissed the robot's preconception as a scary monsters. He was a critic of Čapek's robot in this regard. And he started to write stories in which robots act as human helpers. Asimov, who calls himself the father of the modern robot story, inspired by his writings many scientists and engineers working in robotics laboratories in their effort to construct humanoid robots. Some of them might be here listening to my presentation. Looking backward, we can say that Asimov's definition of robot did not replace Čapek's robots, at least not definitely. The concept of robots seemed to be now, in the beginning of the 21st century, more than ever universal, as Karl Čapek predicted in the title of his play, The Rozums Universal Robots. Robot is a complex and ambivalent symbol which stands for different ideas, goals, and philosophical concepts. As universal intelligent machine, robot is the ultimate goal of engineers who are programming and building intelligent systems of various complexity. As a modern version of Golem, it's a symbol of scientists' effort to uncover the secret of life. And as it is an allegorical figure used by social scientists, philosophers, writers, and artists reflecting upon conditions of humanity in the context of industrial and post-industrial societies. Now I will introduce you to several examples of robots in art from the middle of the 20th century until nowadays. Čapek's robots and robotic art share its roots and inspiration sources in the machinic aesthetics of the 20s and 30s of the 20th century, which manifestations are collected on this slide. The first images refer to the movie Ballet Mécanique by Fernand Léger, issued in 1924, in which fragments of human bodies and marionettes replace each other in a fast speed and regular rhythm of machinic production to cause confusion of viewers' perception and make them unable to recognize who is a human, the subject, and what is an object. The second photograph illustrates Oskar Schlemmer's vision of an actor on Bauhaus stage, the actor puppet, who is deprived of individual features in favor of representation of general categories. The third image in the upper right corner is from Zika Vertov's movie A Man with a Movie Camera from 1924. It illustrates the concept of the cameraman transformed into a cyborg by merging the human eye with a camera. And the last picture, there are Tiller Girls. It's a product of popular culture. They were famous for perfectly synchronized chorus line dancing, which reflects in its form a serial production of assembly lines. The metaphor of man-machine lost its allegorical meaning in the middle of the 20th century in the context of a cybernetic discourse. The cybernetic paradigm transformed the dichotomy man versus machine into a spectrum or field of more or less complex information processing systems. The robot, as a metaphor based on dichotomy man-machine, was transformed into an analogy. This is reflected in new forms and genres of robotic art too. Katz and Roca wrote a definition of robotic art in 1997. Crucial feature of robotic art is its physical form, the hardware body, which is in contrary to the digital materiality of computer art, and the aspect of interactivity or even program behavior of these artifacts. Another dominant feature is its anti-mimetic aesthetics. The robotic art is a successor of kinetic art and cybernetic sculptures. The first cybernetic sculpture was CYSP1, the acronym of Cybernetic Spatiodynamic 1, made by Nicholas Schäfer in 1956. It's a complex interactive installation with electronic basis. It has sensors that picked up signals for color, light intensity, and sound intensity from the environment. The signals then control the sculpture's behavior. The YSP1 was part of a number of ballet performances as well, presented as a first cybernetic abstract dancer. Here are two examples of an early robotic art. The first one, Namjoon Paik's robot K456 from 1964. It's a humanomorphic robot, and it's, according to the author, the historically first non-human action artist. The robot was built for street actions in which it was supposed to mingle with bypassers, as Paik said. I imagine it would meet people on the street and give them a split-second surprise, like a sudden shower. The robot was losing beans, with reference to the Vaucanson's mechanical duck, and reproduced the GFK's inaugural speech while walking the streets. The Sensor by Edward Ignatowicz got zoomorphic shape, and it was programmed to show as if shy behavior of an animal. The Sensor was probably the first exhibited robotic sculpture controlled by computer. It was designed to respond to people's sounds and movements. The louder the crowd was, the shyer was the behavior of the sculpture. Canadian artistic duo Bill Bourne and Philippe Demers built this machinic environment inspired by Franz Kafka novel The Trial. They called the performance the dramatic post-industrial poetry. The performances are based on theatrical suspension of disbelief, which enables an audience to project its own emotions into the movements and noises produced by these mechanical environments. The artist Momoyo Torimitsu uses the humanoid simulacral robots as a means of satirical comments on post-industrial society. She presents the businessman as a programmed robot in service of an invisible but powerful hand of the global market. These robots are crowding in the streets or in the offices, and we can look at them from up with disrespect, or we can identify with them. Maurizio Borgnini calls his installation post-screen art. The enigmatic assemblage of sealed computers refers to those aspects of computers' existence which are inaccessible to humans. Visitors can only hear a sound of processing, kind of murmuring, of the images which are sent from one computer to another. And Patricia Piccinini is author of this Siren Mole. The potential, she is reflecting potential side effect of bioengineering in the form of different mutants and organic like misfits in her work. These hypothetical mutants can be taken as another form of robots. Her installations serve as media by which she's communicating the ethical issues of responsibility of creators for creatures they make. Christoph Kinterer built a humanoid robot in the size of chart, which is beating the ball with its head, and call it revolution. This disturbing scene of self-harm opens the topic of revolution as an expression of the deprivation and self-destruction of the individual. The Robovox by Martin Britsey is another Slavic robot. In this case, it's 8 meters tall. It's anti-monument that serves not to manifest the power of dominator, but as a representative of Vox Populi. People can send SMS to it and it speaks the messages loud. And this is Paul Vanon's labor, in English work. It's a dynamic, self-regulated art installation in which, without any human effort, the smell of sweat is produced. This is artificially produced in glass bioreactors in which human skin bacteria grow. As they process sugar and fats, they create odors reminiscent of human sweat. A white t-shirt in the center of the installation, you can see in the middle image and on the right, picks up the sand and stores it in its fibers. This artwork won Golden Nika Prize at Ars Electronica Festival 1918 in Linz, Austria. The artificial sweat called Labor shares with Čapek's robots not only the name, because Čapek wanted to call his artificial workers laborers originally, but the ambivalence of its meaning as well. We can ask whether the artificial sweat is an essence of humanity, or is it a satirical reflection upon disappearing experience of manual work? Robots in art today serve as a media of artistic production that resist to the power of mythization. The resistance is manifested in conscious usage of myth, as in case of Krzysztof Kintera Revolution. Another powerful contemporary robotic art strategy can be found in works dealing with regressive semiological systems that can be compared to the modern poetry, as in case of Demers and Warren installations. The DIY laboratory producing artificial sweat called Labor is a new incarnation of the flickering and ambivalent concept of robot in the context of the Industry 4.0. And let me close the presentation with a quotation from robotic art definition. As a genre, robots do not aspire to convert themselves into closed and fixed forms. They are capable of perishing as a concept if a new situation arises to encompass and surpass them. Robots exist as a juncture of creative debate and conceptual exploration that manifests itself in expanded telematic and cybernetic domain. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah. Thank you, Jana, for your very interesting talk. For me, I already heard several things from it in your previous talks, or I have found them in this book because I was able to read it. I can read and check. Otherwise, now we can open the discussion. So we have the time for questions. So please all either write your question to chat or no chat. I'm sorry, we have the Q&A panel for questions, but I see nothing. Or I see your hand and ask personally. I see that someone raised the hand, but I cannot find who is it. Sylvia, Richard,
Kasper.
Hey, Kasper. Yeah. So now, hi Kasper, you can talk to us. I've unmuted you.
Thank you for a fantastic talk, Jana. So Universal Robots, Rossum's Universal Robots have a special meaning for me because we started a company in 2003 and we were a little uninformed, but we wanted to make robots that were universal and take over the world. So it was very natural for us to call our company Universal Robots. But I felt maybe we took a little too little out of the concept. Anyway, my question is that I often talk to people, and I think some of the problems we have in robotics and AI is that it started in science fiction, because today many have problems telling science fiction and science fact apart. So journalists, the general public, even scientists have a problem distinguishing what is actually possible engineering-wise and what is sort of an artistic demonstration. Do you have any reflections on this? Because I think it's a really challenging issue for us in robotics, trying to build real robots.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for your question. I think that I can compare your situation or the situation you are blaming with my professional interest in new media art, because it's totally different to, for example, paintings, where it's enough to look at the image and describe what is on it. But in new media art, you have to have the hands-on experience to understand it. I think there are two things that if you want to make public to understand what you are doing as a professional, as a scientist, there should be some easy ways how to explain it. It's one thing, the popularization of science, it's called now, and it's I think that it's big discussion about it. But at the same time, this sci-fi fiction adds some more philosophical aspects. It depends on the author if he or she refers to the current state of the knowledge or technological development, or just uses the concept of the invention, some new device to make the story more attractive, or how to say it, because sometimes it's said that the sci-fi is really a reincarnation of the myth, the Euro-American civilization is based on this Judo-Christian old Roma history that is somehow repeating in the sci-fi story. So I don't know, as you can see, it's a hard question. It's just, I think that it's, I don't have solution for it. It's just something that people should be able to switch from the fiction to facts when they are reading the novels and when they are reading scientific papers.
Yes, thank you for the answer. It was a tough question to start the conversation.
So please, others, ask questions. So if not, maybe I can give the same question to Jana as I have got several times when I published that book, Robot 100. What is your personal view on the future of robots? So do you think that the scenario as in R.U.R. comes and they will kill us, or it will help us? So what is your view of the future? So what do you think it will be in 100 years from now? Yeah, I very often, I have got this question very often, and
I don't know if you have it often, but it's a really hard question. I don't know who is able to predict what will going on. I think that robot got different shape. It's not that humanoid figure or the crowd of robots. That's the problem, that this information and communication technologies are invisible mostly for us. They work invisibly, hidden behind the screens. And it's maybe, but at the same time, I think we are living in the moment when the balance between who is in control and who is controlled is somehow on the table to discuss it. If we are, if we will leave the expert systems or the big data and all the algorithms to control us, then definitely robots will overcome us, and they don't have to annihilate humankind. They will just in the position of the subject that control, or subject, some entity that controls our society. And I think it's really dangerous. And I find it not dangerous because of the technology, but because of the ease with which human leave the solutions on the expert systems, how much we believe to the machines. I think that's the problem.
Yeah, thank you. And I see that Susan has the question, so you can unmute yourself and talk to us.
Hi, yes, thanks for that. Absolutely fascinating talk. And I'm going to ask a much nerdier question than Jitka asked a philosophical question. I was incredibly struck when you showed the picture of the American premiere, that the robots, you said, all had the same haircut and so on. I was just struck how exactly they look like Vulcans. And I was just wondering, I mean, they just look like sort of lots of Spock from Star Trek standing there. And I was just wondering whether there's any evidence that the design of Vulcans was based on that kind of style, because again, although they're not robots, they are living beings. They are supposed to be very almost robotic, logical, and so on. And I was just very struck by the visual comparison there.
Yeah, I don't know about these evidences, but it's I think that it's very hard to find in the case of robot, where is the original concept and where is the inspiration or remake of the concept, because it's really everybody were writing or thinking about this mechanization of man, the fascination with technological progress, and the man-machine was all around Karl Čapek. So and the society. So I think that no, I don't have any evidences about where the inspiration came from, but yeah, it's probably somehow like shared imagination of the time.
Thank you.
Yeah, if there are no many questions, but or hands up, but time is running, so maybe a quick question from Oscar. You can speak now and ask Jana if you're.
Hello, good evening, good morning, whatever it is. Thank you for the talk. I wanted to ask what robots teach us about our own humanity, in your view, Jana.
Robots teach us, I think it's hard to like define in one sentence artwork. Artwork every time brings up the questions every one of us should try to answer. There is no like definition Čapek robot is, but I would say that Čapek wanted to show us that, or I call it Turing test or Čapek test of humanity in the article I wrote to Jitka's book, that Čapek used the theater stage, what I think it's really important, to test the audience, what the audience will answer if they will see the human characters and robots on the stage from the same organic matter, but with different behavior, different yeah, and I think that's the problem of double or the fake human, as for example, yeah, it's problem of the double or the fake of human. Is it human or not? And the question, the answer we should find in finding differences between robot and human. So it's not something we should learn from, I think. Maybe some techno-optimists do, but it's something that should turn our attention to what to the question what it means to be human. Yeah, that's the answer. And I think it's hard to answer, and it's more and more hard to answer, I think.
So I would like to say once more, thank you, Jana, for your amazing talk. Thank you all for joining us for the first keynote talk at the A-Life 21 conference on artificial life. Originally, I thought that we will have time for a short break, but it seems not. But as I said, everything is online, so you can leave anytime. Everything is recorded, so if you miss something, you can check it later on YouTube. The links to YouTube you can find on Slack or the conference page. Now everyone has got again the email with password, and I hope that nobody has the troubles with the access. If yes, please contact us. So now we are in the blue lecture hall, and the keynote session is over, and in 2 minutes the talk session will start. And if you are interested in chemobionics workshop, please click on the link Zoom, which is available in the program or calendar or Slack. And if you want to join the Lifelike Computing Systems Workshop 2021, then please join the green lecture hall. And one more thing is, if you have questions to Jana, you can ask her in Slack. There is the channel keynotes, and whole the week, even if you are watching the recorded talk on Thursday or Friday, you can send the questions there later, and she will access and answer it. So thank you all. Thank you, Jana, and enjoy the conference.